Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I'm your host, Diane Gibbs. I am joined here with Biljana Kroll, and she is originally from Macedonia in Eastern Europe,
Mhm.
right? And she lived there till
Yeah,
she was 18, and then she moved to Michigan, I guess, and
right.
did her
Hmm.
undergrad or did your undergrad in fashion design. So we're going to see the whole gamut today about where she's gone. And she has an MA from SCAD, and then she's getting an MFA in illustration right now currently. And
Yeah.
it's not like you live there and you go. It's a distance
Yeah,
program.
it's a
So she
low
goes for a couple weeks,
residency program. Hmm.
and it's at Mary Washington. Is that right? Right. So it's kind
Marywood
of a neat
University.
program too. Right. There you go. Sorry. Too
No,
many
it's okay.
things in my brain today. But I found her. She is an amazing letterer, so of course, an amazing illustrator. And we're inundated because next week we have another type person. But it's so fantastic, and anyway. So I can't wait to show you, and we get to actually see some of her process. So without further ado, thank you so much for coming. And I don't know if you want to introduce yourself a little bit better than what I did, but I'm sure I messed it up a little bit. But
Oh, no, you did great. Thank you so much for having me on. Just a few changes actually. I didn't get my MA until 2009. When I came to the States, I actually came for high school. I ended up being in high school for 5 years, which was not cool, but I ended up going to a really cool high school. It's called Interlochen Arts Academy, and it has specific focus on just various arts. And I was definitely interested in visual arts, so that's what I kind of put my focus in, and specifically fiber arts. So that's how my whole journey started here in the States. But after that, I applied for colleges, and yeah, I went for fashion and interior merchandising. Then my
and
master's was in graphic
it's such
design,
a
a
it's
little bit
such
of
a
everything.
it's such a difference, but you can see your expertise in your illustrations of people because of your fashion design background, which I think is pretty cool. So
Yeah, it's just something
I
that
actually
I've always been interested in, just drawing in general. And I think fashion kind of came naturally to me because my grandmother was a seamstress, and I love patterns and just different decorations, surface decoration, things like that. So it all kind of fell in place, I guess, through the years.
that's cool. Well, I found her through another Spreecaster a long time ago, and it was with this piece, Never Stop Learning. And me as an educator, of course, I totally love this. And um, so, there's all kinds of things that just resonate about this piece, and it's actually for sale, and I'll share the link. I have a big one on its way. I think it's like a 2 foot by 3 foot. But we're going to talk about. I love this blue that you use, but it just resonates with me, and I think a lot of us feel like we are. I mean, as a designer, you have to be constantly learning, or you're not going to be a very good designer because things change. So I love this. Can you talk a little bit about why you just did this piece and where it's kind of taken you?
Yeah. This piece actually was one in many different typography projects that I kind of took upon myself to do. This one I actually entered it into a competition that is through talenthouse.com. A student of mine kind of informed me that this website exists, and it's a great place for illustrators and designers to kind of showcase their work and enter different competitions. And I was kind of skeptical at first. I wasn't sure if it's a real deal, and it seemed easy enough. You just create a piece on certain theme or a certain sentence that they give you. And this contest was organized by Udemy. They're a learning platform that's online, and teachers and instructors from all over the world can start their own class on there. And so that was a really interesting, neat feature for me. I wanted to kind of be part of that, and I'm even considering maybe starting my own um, just a class on there too. But the piece was supposed to be inspired by their kind of motto, never stop learning. And so I kind of chose a few of my favorite quotes from different people, as you can see, to kind of feature and really get people to become passionate about learning and what it can do for you. And I've been a learner since I can remember, and it was always very important for me to get really good education. And I feel like I'm still learning, and there's so much more other things that I want to learn that I felt like I'm a educator and a student at the same time. So it was the perfect contest for me to enter. And it happened that during that time, I was really into experimenting with hand-drawn type. So this was just another challenge for me to kind of illustrate a whole poster in just hand letter, basically design.
So
I'm sorry.
just
Is
a
there
little
a
bit
way
about your
to?
process. And yes, so if you
Uh-huh.
click,
I was
if
just
you
trying
just
to move.
scroll over it,
Mhm.
you can move it over. You can move it and put it over my face if you want. And I'll take it off the air in just a second. But if anybody's new, the chat is, you can just hit the chat and you can start talking to us. And then you can actually roll your mouse over the poster. If it's on the poster right now, roll it off and then back on. And then you can drag it wherever inside the window, the Spreecast window that you want it to be. It's really cool, but you can still move it so you can see Biljana's face. So um, does that help you? Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, that's what I was trying to do. It was right in front of both of us. I'm like, oh, if there's a
So
way to move it,
how
I would prefer
was
to.
was this done? You painted it all blue and then you wrote in white, or did you
No, actually,
leave the white?
I always, I'm sorry. Yeah. I always
No.
start in one way, really. I start with just black ink, but I don't want that to kind of limit me in what color the final design is. But it's just much easier and cheaper, I guess. So I just buy just calligraphy black India ink, and I create these just with pen and a nib, basically, a pen holder and a nib, and then I scan it, and then I change all the colors on the computer. I think that kind of lets me do whatever I want, and I don't have to worry about the colors so early in the process, anyways, until I see it on the screen and figure out really what I want to do with it. And yeah,
So
so
the
that's
the
pretty much
back
how I start all my work.
the background looks like it's painted because I see some the texture a little bit in it. So are you doing something different with the background and then putting your black type, reversing it, and then putting it in the? Are you creating your backgrounds? Or are you? What are you doing?
Yeah, I use a lot of textures and brushes. Some of them are free downloaded from internet. Others are, most of them are just smudges and things that I do anyways, and I just kind of scan it all together and end up using some of them. Some of them are just irregularities and mistakes and stuff that I've made, and I've just kind of left them inside the final design. It was supposed to look hand drawn, so I didn't really went too much over it and cleaning up a lot of those irregularities. So
So, and we'll see in your process, I'm going to take this one off the air. We'll see in your process on some of the other ones that you actually do start in pencil a lot of times. Is that true, or was that just the ones
yeah,
that I pulled?
no, I think that's really the best way to start, just to figure out the kerning and the size of the letters and figure out whether your whole quote or the whole text that you're working with is going to fit in the space that you want it. And then you can have a lot of fun to adding a lot of different elements around, and it's a lot faster than trying to stretch or work with text on the computer. Probably all of us have done that at some point, but I like figuring out those things first on a piece of paper with pen and pencil and eraser, and then once I have something finalized in pencil, I clean it up with just really quickly go over it with calligraphy pen, and then I scan it.
Oh, cool. All right, so tell us a little bit about what attracted, since you were already, even in high school, you went to an arts high school, what attracted you to design and illustration, and then tell us a little bit about your history in fashion.
Well, right out of college, I got a job to do product design, and it was home goods, gift goods, and fashion products too. So that was a little bit of a mixture of different things, and I kind of realized how important it is to not just be good traditionally, but you kind of have to know the computer as an artist. And this was early 2000s, and I was still really just getting into Photoshop. Actually, my first time I got into Photoshop was 2001 because I met my husband in college and he introduced me. He said, "Oh, you do illustration. Have you heard of Photoshop? You can actually retouch your drawings there." It's like, no, what is that? So that was my humble beginnings with Photoshop. But I got totally addicted to it, and right out of college, ended up using a lot of what I've learned on my own, really, because there weren't that many classes being offered in learning the software and learning what you can do as an artist with it. So all of the stuff that I've learned, I've kind of taken to my job, and I saw how important it is to know the programs too. But I realized that I'm kind of getting more into the graphic design field, which I knew nothing about. Um, that kind of made me uncomfortable when I would apply to a job that most of them require graphic design knowledge. And here I'm at with just traditional, maybe artist skills and a little bit of Photoshop knowledge. And so I thought, well, I might need to go back to school and learn some graphic design. So that's how I got in the master's program, and it was the e-learning program that SCAD has, and it was a really, really big eye opener as far as learning really about graphic design, the rules, and um, knowing just the history of what has been done and how varied it is. My very limited knowledge was that it's all about just doing, corporate brochures and maybe calendars and mouse pads and things like that. And it's really creative. I mean, I don't even have to say it anymore. It sounds kind of funny, but um, I just kind of ran with it and I had so much fun. So that's how I kind of got into graphic design particularly, but illustration, I think that was kind of natural to me. It just I've always done it, even when I wasn't supposed to, when I was in other classes and I was just doodling. But it was just something that I've always done, and I've I've had so much fun with it. So it just came naturally to me to go for anything illustration.
So, so this piece is from your kind of fashion design era,
Hmm.
and you're starting kind of with some of these backgrounds and some things like that. So, can you talk a little bit about this one, and then I'm going to pull the other one up. Just how what the process is as you change, from being specifically for fashion and transitioning in.
Well, I think for artists, it's just really good to be varied in what they can do and the different techniques they can do. And this piece was created in kind of 2005, 2006, I want to say. And it was when I worked for a fashion magazine. It was actually a women's magazine, but it had a really large fashion section in it too. And a lot of times I would create all the illustrations that go with the stories, or they would have a whole illustrative spread of the trends of the season or something. So that was a lot of fun. The editor, she was great. She let me kind of explore and create illustrations. Just they got a pen and tablet just for me there, even though that wasn't part of the job description, but I ended up doing all of that for them. So at that time, I was just having so much fun with vector illustrations. They were kind of big at that time. So everything it did was directly done with the pen and tablet on the computer, and I kind of really proud of myself that I can do that. I got really quick at it. I could do an illustration like half an hour to an hour, which my employer loved, of course. But uh, I kind of got burned out. I think I did it so often and so much that I was kind of wondering, okay, what's next? What can I do next? This one that you're showing right now was done for a Irish blog site, I think, uh, Chiconomics it was called, and it was all about fashion. And I worked really closely with the owner of the blog, and they always came to me with the story behind the illustration, what they wanted for that day or for that month. And so it was kind of interesting also to kind of get a different view of what European style or fashion at that moment is and what American is. And before I knew it, I started designing more in the American way. So all the girls had that kind of classy 1950s style dresses, and I remember her telling me, yeah, this feels a little bit classy and too traditional. Can you kind of spice it up a little bit, make it more funkier? I'm like, oh, that's right. This is Europe we're talking about. So it was kind of neat to explore the other side of the world and look at fashion from Europe too. But yeah, that was a freelance project that I did while I was doing my MA.
That's
A
cool.
lot
So
of
then you
my
kind
other
of
fashion. Oh, that's Mila making an entrance. Um,
she had to put her
Good
two
job.
cents in.
Um, but the fashion projects, most of them that I've had actually were freelance projects. So that was the neat thing that I started seeing in that time from 2006 to 2009, that a lot of employers started feeling more courageous to go online and look for artists online. So that was kind of lucky for me that I ended up working, very fortunate,
So
end up working with
how did you
fashion
end up
projects.
where were where were you putting your stuff out so that people would find you?
Um, at that time, there weren't that many platforms. I think Choroplot was one, and Fashion Mission. And Fashion Mission, I think it's .nl, which I think it stands for Netherlands. But it was
Mhm.
just few websites that were really big at that time, and it was the only place that I've put my stuff on there. And I think it was just one of the first not one of the first, but there weren't that many, as many as there are right now, really, illustrators out there that could be found online. And it wasn't really part of any kind of illustrators society or anything. But I can see that as being as another good venue to become a member, and that would probably get you, you can showcase your work like that too.
And I actually found
But
her
that
on
was
Facebook.
early
So
on. Okay. Uh-huh.
that's I
Oh,
think it's
really?
you just gotta yeah, gotta know where you're
Yeah.
people are sharing your stuff because it's so great. So it's just about putting your stuff out there. So find the thing that's great in your niche market. So for this, it was fashion, and you were finding those places. So I always think it's neat to know where people um, started and where they were putting their stuff out there. So you kind of transitioned from that to doing more of things like this. Hopefully, it'll come on screen. So can you talk about? I mean, because this is totally different, but it's beautiful.
I know that's why I wanted to kind of share it, just to kind of show that you don't have to just do one thing. You can kind of explore whatever you feel like exploring at that moment, and just see where it takes you. This piece was actually, I guess it was a personal piece, but it was intended to go in one of the books that I was creating for my classes. And that started a whole nother journey. When I started teaching 3 years ago, I realized that I couldn't really find one book that had all the material that I wanted to share with students. For
Mhm.
example, one of the classes that I teach was digital imagery, and you have to know how to do collages and things like that in Photoshop. And there's so many great tutorials out there, but I would have to share, I don't know, 50 links with students for to get everything that they need to know. So I thought, well, it would be great to create a book or two for different classes, a workbook that has everything in it, from the lessons, exercises, even the rubric, everything. So I just give them one book, and they go on the website. They can watch the tutorials as or they can follow them in the book as I talk through them. And this piece and few other ones have more personal meaning behind them, but they were really supposed to illustrate some designing principles of just working with scale, and how to create composition, and how to compose with your own images, because most of the images were taken just at different trips that I've taken to Macedonia and other places. um, except for the Hubble telescope pictures. Those I borrowed from your website.
Here, I'll pull up the next one.
Yeah, that one was taken at a lake in Macedonia, and I just love that picture so much, and I wish I had the original somewhere. But I always thought, well, one day I'll end up using this picture in some fashion. And that day came when I had to create all this work for the books, and I thought, why not use some of those images? Wants attention, can you tell?
That's okay.
Um, and so I ended up using some of those images that I've taken on that trip, and I created this kind of surreal landscape.
It's cool. I think there's one more in this kind of, it incorporates type. So some you were just creating these images to, as a practice, right? For practical use to teach, but also, I mean, these are great. I mean, they're really neat and it helps people or it helps me as a designer think about, wow, these are things I could do with some images that I've taken. It's really is about composition and what you're putting in and what you're trying to say. So, but then you're starting to incorporate some type in. So, can you talk about that a little bit and where you started adding that part in?
Um, Type, I mean, type was always part of any decision that I would make as a designer, I guess. But I think when I kind of had to decide really which direction I want to go with it. From SCAD, I kind of felt intimidated a little bit of what I can do, what I'm allowed to do with type, I guess. And I totally appreciate all those rules and regulations that we've learned of, don't stretch type, and I definitely teach them. I think those are a really good basis to start with as a student.
Right.
But I don't want students to feel intimidated that they only have to use 5 typefaces and nothing else. I mean, in my branding identity maybe work, I may not use a lot of different type faces, but when it comes to personal work or work that allows for you to have a little bit more fun, or if the client is open to creating hand-drawn type, I think it's totally allowed to do that. And a lot of customers I've found actually they really like that because that's another element that they can say it's custom created for their business. And so I started thinking, well, what if I just use type and instead of including a picture graphic of some sort in the logo, what if I just do a hand-drawn type of illustration of the type, or I customize some font. And so that kind of became really popular with people that have shared. And then starting with my MFA, I kind of got the idea of illustrating 3 storybooks. And I thought, well, I love storybooks and I've always liked them. But one thing that I hated about most of them is that the type was always said by probably some graphic designer in-house instead of the illustrator. And I don't think a lot of illustrators have input when they illustrate the book of what the type looks like. And
I,
understanding has to be readable, and that's really a major thing for kids to be able to read it. But you can still have some fun, especially with the title and the book cover. So I thought, why don't I do all the type in my book, especially the first one. I really wanted to challenge myself to do the type on the cover as well and on the inside. So I designed my own font. I actually have the book here.
is it The Princess and the Pea or The Little Mermaid? Yep, I pulled it up.
The Princess and the Pea. And The Little Mermaid is the second one that I'll be doing. Um,
Hmm.
but
So, are these books
that's when I kind of
available
started getting.
to buy
Yes, The
or
Princess
no?
and the Pea is available. Hmm. The Princess and the Pea is available. If you go through my website and under shop, you can see it. And I have another one published with Gina and Taylor. She wrote the story. She was the editor of the magazine where I worked. That one is The Little Girl Who Loves to Twirl. Hmm. And
Cool,
The Little Mermaid, I'm still working on that one. And then I'll have one more after that.
cool. Well, I'm going to leave the link up. So, but did you do all the type inside the Princess and the Pea like you're doing in the Little Mermaid?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I'm gonna do the Little Mermaid yet, but in the Princess and the Pea, I did create a font. I created calligraphy letters first, and then scanned them, cleaned them up in Illustrator, vectorized them, and then I actually put them in one of the font making programs, and I created a font. So it's yeah, it's available out there. It's a neat font, but it needs a lot of work. I have a whole much bigger respect, let's say, for type designers after doing my own font. It just takes so much time to do all the kerning and stuff. So thankfully, I can just kind of adjust it when I see things not really working together. But I wouldn't feel comfortable selling it quite yet or making it public. I think it needs a little bit more work. But I made it work for the book, and it created little drop caps too
Oh,
um,
cool.
to
That's
go with it.
awesome. But this is the project that you're working on currently now is the Little Mermaid, right?
Right, right. And that kind of started a whole nother thing, and that's the nautical theme that's kind of seen through a lot of different pieces that I have. I do like doing a lot of research before I start on something. Sometimes I get too much involved in it, like I did with the nautical theme. But I really wanted to figure out what style I'm going to do it in, and for the Princess and the Pea, I decided to go with pen and ink drawings that I would scan. And for the Little Mermaid, I decided to go with graphite drawings that I scan and then color them on the computer too. So
So,
that way I have a little bit of a variety of.
mhm. No, go ahead.
I wanted each book basically to be a little bit different in some way.
So this is one thing that I think is just amazing. So I did not know this until I was talking to her earlier in the week, um, or last week, I guess, is that she's doing all these in the sketchbook, like even the Never Stop Learning.
Mhm.
So what size is your sketchbook?
Now I have some sketches here to share, and it's it's weird. I probably should create all of this on nice clean Bristol board, and I have it. I just don't use it because it's so nice and clean. And I end up just doodling a lot, and a lot of these things that I've done were actual little doodles. The smallest that I've worked on was this scale, and I definitely don't recommend working at this scale, but one of the pieces was, I don't know what this is, maybe 4 inches tall. Um, but most of them actually will be this scale. Let's
Okay.
see. Here's another one you've probably seen that was also done in the sketchbook. Um, a
So
lot of
again,
times
you're
I
do,
start with a,
but you're coloring
I'll
it
start with a
all
little,
in the computer.
yes, all of it is colored on the computer. I'm just so much quicker, and I changed my mind so many times about different color schemes that I mean, it would take me forever. If I was doing this in watercolors, which I love, it would take me forever. And I have to keep going. I have so much work to get done for my MFA that I had to figure out really a quick way that works for me. And I think that's the best way. And
So
that one, the one that you're showing is yeah, right here.
and so this
That's
just
the first
was, did
page.
it start small and then it just kept growing and then it became this? Or was it,
It
did you have it
was,
planned
it
out?
started like this. It started like a list of things that I would like to research. You can see the word list actually right here. And then there was
Uh-huh.
this little thumbnail sketch of what I wanted to do, how I wanted to cram all those things together. And then I did, you can't see it here, but there was a pencil under drawing here. And then I just outlined it with plain ink.
I think we can see some. You did, I'm going to pull this one on. I think we can see some of the pencil in this. So you're working really lightly. It looks like really lightly in pencil. Are you using a H or a 2H, 3H, or you're not using a B, are you?
No,
pencil?
I think it's just HB, just a regular HB. But I always try to stay really light because I keep tweaking things and I might move things just a little bit, and then I really don't want to have those pencil marks showing too much. So I do work lightly until I'm really sure what I want to do with it and or outline it in ink.
Now this one you're working in blue. Like, did you pull a blue indigo and or is it black?
It's black. It's black. It was just at some point I turned it blue, but it's all black. Yeah.
Well, it's great that it's blue, and this looks like an Instagram or something that you've taken, and I love the details. Boy, that's something that's so meaty for me as a designer to look and see. So you just and I asked you because I didn't know where Macedonia was when we first started talking. This is you weren't like by the ocean, and you have this childhood by the sea kind of thing. This is just something you were interested in, and because so much of it is so nautical based.
Right, right.
So I'm gonna
I
pull.
think it could be because I did not grow up near the sea. I think I always wanted to be near the sea. And I've only been a handful of times really. And I always have this, I think it's perfect. If I ever wanted to choose where I live, I think I would live somewhere on an island or something. I think that was just some unreal wish that just kind of worked subliminally. Um, and I also got to research a lot of old sailor songs, and I just fell in love just with the whole culture of being on the sea and being far away from your family and just all the nostalgia and longing. And I think that kind of struck home, I guess, just being far from home. I think that was probably the theme that kind of got me into it. And I think that's why I even chose the Little Mermaid as the storybook to illustrate. I think I was just really into that kind of tragic and melancholic story a little bit.
Hmm. So so with your research and coming up with because your fish looks kind of similar. The fish your fish tend to be kind of pretty. And I don't normally think a fish is super pretty, but yours are. So and the type, and you're using a calligraphy pen, like where you're dipping your nib in and drawing with it, correct?
Hmm. Yes, yes,
So
yeah. I do
how
have
do you
some nibs that I use. Uh-huh.
did you start off as a calligrapher, or did you ever study calligraphy, or was it just like this is what I like to draw, and you would draw it out in pencil first, and then you would just like trace over your drawings?
Well, I did wanted to use calligraphy-based style of type in my book. So I thought maybe it's not that hard and I can learn within a summer. And so that's what I did. I just bought a bunch of books. I have Calligraphy in 24 Hours, and it did not take 24 hours, I can tell you that much. Mastering Copperplate Calligraphy is another one. But I bought several books, and I didn't even know what nibs are. I didn't even know that there's different types of nibs, and they all give you different lines. And I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted a nib that gives you from really thick line to a very thick line. And those are very flexible nibs. Well, I didn't know that until I bought a bunch of them and tested all of them. But I love internet. That's another thing. I think that just really opened my eyes to all the possibilities. I would go on blogs that are maintained by calligraphy artists that do wedding, just like addresses and envelope addressing, and
Mhm.
some of them would share what tools they use and what nibs they use, and then I would test those out. So I just kind of searched for all the information really until I figured out what it is that I want. One style that I like to use now, I think it's 101 size. It's Speedball,
Speedball 101, is that what you
and
said?
it's very flexible. And there's another one. I don't have the number here. The other kind is better for just drawing. This
Nikki
one is
Hoffman, who's
107, and
107.
mhm.
Okay. I know she's been doing I follow her on Facebook and she's been drawing letters. And so Nikki, this is making me want to go and get my calligraphy pen and my different nibs to so I don't know if you want to do this or not. You can write it in the chat, but it makes me want to do that for sure. But I know it takes more than 24 hours, right, to learn calligraphy? Or
Oh my gosh.
are you an amazing student
Yeah,
and you got
I
it in less than 24?
no, no. I mean, I'm really far from being a master in this. I mean, I I understand the basics. I know what it takes, and I know how to do my own Spencerian style. I'm kind of faking it really, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it. I'm far from being perfect at it really. It would probably take years to perfect it. But I think I got it to a point where I can successfully use it for what I needed for my story books.
So did you kind of tweak or every I mean the Princess and the Pea looks a lot different than the Little Mermaid type. So are you and your
Mhm.
nautical type kind of looks different. So are you really catering it and really thinking about which type is appropriate for which thing you're doing and how do you decide what are some of those decisions?
I think it's important to kind of think of all the different elements that you're using in the design. So I knew that the Princess and the Pea was going to be inspired by kind of the illuminated manuscripts type of style of everything being kind of very elaborate and lots of flourishes and the drop caps being very elaborate too. So I kind of knew that the type has to be very fancy looking. For the Little Mermaid, I think that there's going to be so much text. I didn't realize how long the original story is that I want to keep the type very simple and readable, and there'll be pages that just have type with maybe a very fancy, some kind of a border. But for that one, I'm probably going to tone down on the decorative elements on the typeface that I use. But as far as the book cover, I knew it had to fit the whole mood of being kind of underwater, and so I kind of created that kind of seaweed and algae type of typeface.
So then for something like that, again, you're doing all your coloring in the computer.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. For that one,
So
you can
this is
see here's the original. hmm That was the
oh yeah, oh
original
yeah.
drawing that I did for the Little Mermaid. So it was
Wow,
just
the
black and
type is
white, and then I
beautiful.
add the. Thank you.
Gosh, I mean, but you're studying like these old type. Are you looking at old, or I would think you would be, or are you just coming up with this on your own?
As far as just writing, like if I'm writing something, I think I can come up with several different styles of just lettering just on my own. But if I'm really kind of paying attention to all the elements and if I want the type to fit a certain whatever a period or something that I'm doing, then I'll definitely do the research and I'm constantly researching type even when I'm just kind of doing nothing really when I'm watching TV. I'm always on the computer at the same time. So I love Pinterest for that. I pin a lot of stuff. So if you're interested to kind of see the same things that I'm looking at, you can look at my boards. I have a typography board on there. And one thing that wasn't available recently that became available was a lot of the libraries and museums are putting their uh, books that they have on file available in digital version. So that really just kind of opened my eyes to just old vintage signage and lettering books and decorative books of different fields of like Art Nouveau and Art Deco, which are probably my two favorite periods. So one website that I often visit is called archive.org, and it has books on a variety of subject matters, but I found a lot of lettering books on there too. And it's just nice to look at book covers and just to kind of get a feel of what cover design looked at that age. A lot of books are, I mean, I found books from the 14 to 1500s. Some of the same books that I've studied in graphic design history. I opened my history book and then go online and look for them, and I found them there, really. Some of the first books that have been printed.
That's cool. But I mean, like the type you drew for the Little Mermaid seems so planned out. I mean, not that this one that's on screen right now doesn't seem planned. It does seem planned out, but you I mean, you made it look like it was the Little Mermaid one has that bevel and I mean it really has that three-dimensional feel. So it just felt like to me that you were looking at some type specimens or something that was coming in more
Oh,
that influenced that type.
no, I don't know. I think it's just um, maybe subconsciously, just different elements that your brain just kind of puts everything together in new ways, I think. Maybe it's something that I've seen somewhere out there. I mean, there's so many great things that people have done through the years, and it's just, I think you're gonna do that on your own. Like if you're creative, you just start putting different elements in different ways, and you come up with a different combination of things. You know?
Well, I think I love that. I love that about what you did is that it does look different. Like your types look different and they don't all it's not just oh well that's Biljana's stuff. Like it really you're really taking into consideration all the elements and like with this piece and I think you show this in your sketchbook, right? But boy, things really change when you get into Photoshop and just those colors, you still make it look like it was watercolored and just
Mhm.
the details that you're doing with your pen and ink really make such a difference when you're if even if it was just that and it was flat color. So they're amazing.
Thank you. I really wanted with these pieces to continue to feel hand drawn, even when they're colored digitally. I think it would destroy the piece if I added like vector color, like vector shapes and some bright solid color behind. So for that reason, I kind of worked in Photoshop to add different layers, and some of the layers are set on multiply, which kind of allows for different colors to mix together. Um, so I kind of did that intentionally to kind of keep it hand drawn and hand painted almost. So
Well, I
I
mean,
kind of try to think of the computer differently now that it's just another tool. Like it helps me create things. It speeds up the process, but it doesn't have to look like it was created on the computer.
right. And I think some of those maybe what we would call mistakes in the old, they would have cut them out or whatever. But now you leave them in, so it does have that touch that human touch has, it's not been created by a computer, which I think is great.
Yeah.
So this is another one that is a more recent, I guess, piece. And it's again this beautiful blue, which I love this blue that you pull. And I'm so excited that they were actually black and that you put them in and you created this because it even looks weathered by the texture that you put in the background. I just love it. So really this love of the nautical and this your history of living, being raised somewhere else and then coming over it has such a impact on you as an artist. So I think that's really cool. Do you want to talk about this piece at all, or what makes you choose to color something more than not, or just do something in two colors?
Mm, well, I don't decide about the colors until I see it on the computer, just because it's too many decisions to begin with, and I just want to worry and have fun. Like I just want to work at one thing at a time. So once I get on the computer, I kind of try different combinations, but um, you kind of notice, and you mentioned it, that several of the pieces have this kind of deep indigo blue, and
Hmm.
I don't know where that came from. I think it's just I love color, and I'm very conscious when I choose color, what hue it is, what intensity it is, and all of that. And I love color trends, and I try to stay. on top of, what colors are in, what are going out, and what colors were used at a certain period, or how, in old books, things seem weathered, and the blues will have a little bit of yellow because the paper is yellow as well. So it just, I like those little elements that you can add in your work, and make everything, even from the color to the type to the illustrations, kind of work and say one thing together. And so I don't know. This blue is kind of, it's not a happy blue. I think it's a little bit drab, I guess. It says what the words are saying. It's kind of sad.
Well, it's beautiful, even though it's sad. I think this is a detail of the one that we were just looking at. And then I can pull it back because it's another beautiful fish. I mean, it looks like a girl fish, and she is, she's pretty. But I like how we can see your pencil marks here. And we can even see how the S, the E, and the A changed. You moved them over slightly. It's nice to see that process. And I guess it's the word believes or selves, I guess, above the pretty fish that you changed where you were putting your L, I think is really nice.
Yeah, sometimes even later after I scan it, I notice weird gaps between letters, or I might like one letter and then where it's repeated, I just copy and paste the same letter and reuse it. Um, yeah, I try to keep editing things till last moment, really. Sometimes
It's
I also omit letters unintentionally. Um, but that's just part of the process.
Well, and I when I had Nathan Yoder, I asked him that question. I said, "Gosh, because he just goes straight. He doesn't do pencil at all anymore." And I was like, "What if you misspell something? Like a lot of designers aren't really great spellers. A lot of people aren't great
Oh
spellers, you
gosh,
know."
I'm
So,
terrible. Yeah.
so to me, and this isn't your native language, right? Didn't did they speak English in Macedonia? So it's even harder for you. So that to me would be, I mean, a lovely thing about Photoshop that we can omit and move and adjust. So, but I
Yeah,
would
it's
continue if
funny
I were you.
actually, to do
Yep.
it in pencil. Yeah. Actually, a lot of the things that I do have misspelled words, and I catch them way too late after the whole piece is done and out there. And so I kind of figured out that I'll just make that my signature style. If something is misspelled, it's by Biljana Kroll.
That's good. I guess I should make sure I spell everything right, or maybe you'll get my credit. No, I'm just kidding. I would probably not ever be as good as you, but I really like that you're showing us your process. So I'm going to share her Pinterest. I just already shared her Pinterest link, but I think she's given me her Instagram as well, so we all can follow her. But I really like that. Like it makes it feel like touchable, and that it's a way for you to connect with other people who follow you, which I think is great. I'm going to
Mhm.
put the
And
original, the
yeah,
big
I,
one back.
I definitely don't mind. Mhm. I don't mind
Oh, go ahead.
sharing my process. I think that's how I've learned. I've learned from other people that were grateful enough to put their tutorials online, or put pictures on Instagram. And I think it's just really nice that people feel comfortable enough to share things like that on the internet. I don't think we should be that worried about people stealing our work. I mean, I think it's more likely that people will get to know your style and will ask you to do something rather than just steal it from you.
Right. And they'll adapt, hopefully, to
In my
make it
opinion.
something of their own. But sometimes it's just learning a tool. So I agree. I'm with you. I think
Mm,
that's something that makes us maybe good educators, because we don't mind that. But
mm,
so much of it was blue, and so I told you I was going to bring this piece. I didn't bring the whole piece up, but this is another circle, a circular piece, and I love this piece. Um, the type is so different. It's not totally different, but you've added so much extra little flourishes, and then the flowers, and I mean, it's just amazing to me. And I love the details that you pulled in here. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
This quote, I've had it for a long time in the sketchbook, and I always imagined it like this. I imagined with this kind of brighter center, and then everything kind of originating from the center. It just that's what it said to me, and I never had the time to do it until uh, the past summer, a year ago, I guess, when I had to kind of do research and do different styles of illustration to kind of figure out what I'm going to be doing for my storybooks, and so I ended up doing this in the sketchbook. I might even have it somewhere here, and the style was inspired actually by a book that I purchased a long time ago, and I have it here. It's by Alfonso Mucha, um, Art Nouveau Designs in Color. It's a really old book and it's a reproduction. And I noticed there's a lot of different Art Nouveau elements and stuff, but the idea of the circle is being one complete unit, just one thing, one whole, was something that kind of attracted me, and I thought this quote would be perfect to be featured in a circle. So that's how that design came about, just everything kind of originating from that one center, the quote and all the birds and the flowers and everything, kind of starting from that one point.
Are these flowers that you're seeing in your daily life in Asheville, or are these that you're researching and you're finding these flowers online or in a book or something like that?
Well, I finally got to plant my own garden, so I do have a lot of flowers, some of the same ones that are featured here. But one flower that probably uh, it kind of influences and shows up in most of my work is the peony. And
Mm.
I love peonies, and they're just about to bloom in my garden too, so I can't wait. So I'll take a bunch of pictures and maybe do something with those pictures too. But flowers in general, I think they kind of remind me of home. We did have a garden when I was growing up, and my mom, she loves flowers. She always has flowers in the balcony and stuff. So it's just something that I love as a design detail and the symbolism that goes with it of life and gifts, nature, things like that. So I include it a lot in my designs too.
That's nice. I like this piece. The last one, I don't know, we don't have a lot of time, but this piece is another book. It's very different, very much so structured, which I love that. I love what you said earlier, about being flexible. And as a designer and an illustrator, it's about having different styles. It does make you more marketable for sure, but it also doesn't make, you know, you don't get stuck in this one style. And your people are always beautiful there, but she looks differently. Her face has a different feel. She does sort of look sad, but she's not in the blue. Um, but can you talk a little bit about this and how different this one is?
Well, for the third book, I wanted to do something that feels personal again. And I was looking for some stories that maybe I grew up with, that I've heard as a kid. And this was one of those stories, Vasilisa the Beautiful. And it kind of is a sad story. One thing that I didn't mention about the books, I wanted to choose fairy tales that don't necessarily represent princesses that are like the Disney style of princesses. These are a little bit more kind of raw or real sounding people that may go through trials and tribulations, and then they figure out their own way how to get through it. Vasilisa the Beautiful, it's kind of a Cinderella type of story, but I wanted to do it in a little bit of different style with lots of decorative elements from Macedonian traditional dresses and different traditional cultural heritage things that we've had. And this past winter, I ended up going to a museum we were visiting in Macedonia, and I saw a lot of actual costumes that were on exhibit there. So uh, the costume that she's wearing is partially inspired by some of the things that I saw there, of the elements that Macedonian women wore, and that the same thing with the design behind it in the background there.
Oh,
But then
cool.
again,
So it's
it's probably going to end up having some Art Nouveau elements in there because I love Art Nouveau. So it might be some kind of a blend of things.
well, cool. I mean, it definitely is very different from the Disney style. I love that. I love that it's different and you're doing something really cool. So all of these books are going to be on and I'm going to put it up right now. Haven't told, right? And they
Hmm.
aren't all there yet, but The Princess and the Pea is, correct?
Right. Yeah. And you can view pictures of the process, the different stages of how I've created some of the illustrations. There's pictures on there of each book as far as there are at this point. And there's also a link to the printed version of Princess and the Pea, and that's where basically the books are going to live. Another thing that I didn't mention, actually, I want these to be digital, so I'll be turning them into digital apps for, and I'll be putting them on iTunes too. So they'll have sounds and narration, a little bit of
Wow.
animation. Um, I already got the music. Well, I don't know anything about music, but I got people to play a few tunes for me that I can use for the books.
Well, you're in Asheville. There's a lot of music there, so
Right, right. Yeah, it
so
wasn't
I
hard.
want I want to share some of the other ways people can get in touch with you. So I want them to be able to buy the poster I bought. Let me put this up. This is her Instagram. If you want to follow her on Instagram, I am following her now. So very simple. Just type it in. You'll be able to see her, connect with her in that way. And then I believe, let me remove this from the screen. And so Society 6 is, she has a bunch of stuff there. And that's where that never stop learning, never learning, don't learn, never stop learning poster is. And a bunch of other posters are there as well. And you can get them small. I think the smallest is like 8 by 10 or something. So it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be a huge poster, but they're very affordable. And then this was something else. I don't know what this was exactly, but can you
Mm.
talk about the art house?
Art House, I think they're based in California, and they just invited me to become one of their featured artists. I signed up a licensing agreement with them to feature some of the stuff that I've done that you've showed here to be printed on repurposed wood, and they look amazing on wood. I think they were always meant to be on wood, and so when I got to see them, I think they totally make sense being printed like that. But they have a variety of sizes, I think, and you can find them on that website.
Cool. Let me see. I think we have, well, I'm going to put your website up again. And how did you start selling? Like, what was the decision? And that'll be, I guess, our last question. But what was that decision to do that? And was it hard or was it pretty easy? Or
Um, I don't know how that happened. I think it just kind of happened naturally. I ended up redoing my whole website recently, and all this work ended up being featured on my website. And I thought, well, it would be nice to get some money for it. It's already done. I put a lot of work in it. And then they actually took off from Society 6. I think a lot of people found me through the website, and it's been a really interesting journey. Actually, I kind of decided I always wanted to do one of my projects was to do t-shirts that feature different designs that I've done, and maybe all the proceeds would go to a nonprofit. And I never got around doing that, but this website kind of allows me to do that now. I end up putting all my stuff, and there's really, I don't have to put any money ahead, or I don't have to keep a bunch of prints and t-shirts in the storage or anything. I think it does all that for me. So it's a great way to get my work out there really fast and to get money, and the proceeds, all the proceeds from the stuff on Society Saves go to different nonprofits. In Society 6, another thing that it does, it links to a PayPal, and PayPal donates 100% of the proceeds that you want to donate to a ton of different nonprofits out there. So it makes it really easy. You just click a button and they all go wherever they need to go.
Well, that's cool. That's really awesome. Um, and I think it's great that you're giving back. So that's amazing. So I think I've put everything up there that you sent me. And remember, this is our website. Thank you guys so much. Again, you can always follow me too. Here's Facebook and Instagram. If you're not, please sign up for our mailing list. I don't inundate you, and I will never sell my list. If you are just tuning in and watching, it's designrecharge.org. I have a flip up thing right now. I don't think I'm going to leave it. I think that'll be on each individual video, but it won't be on every page like it is right now because it's annoying me. But just sign up, put your email, your name and your email address, and I will just email you stuff. But you can also follow me on Twitter. I have 2 Twitter accounts. One's really for my design firm. That's Diane Gibbs AU, and then one's Design Recharge. So pick a place. And then again, also you can always find me at designrecharge.org. I will be hopefully freecasting from home the rest of the semester, or for the rest of the semester. This semester's over. The rest of the summer, because I'll be working from home there. I'm not teaching this summer. I don't know if you're teaching, Biljana. Are you teaching this summer?
No, just working on my own projects.
Me too, me
Yay!
too. So I am so excited. I can't wait to get my nibs, and I'm going to make sure I have a 107 and a 101, and I'm going to get busy. So I hope you guys do too, and I hope you guys will join us next week, kind of on the different side, but still doing type, drawing type and hand lettering. Join us next week for Zachary Smith, a really young designer who's really been doing great about getting marketing stuff out there. And we're going to talk about that. For being so young, he's really got a great eye. And Biljana, thank you so much. Your stuff is. Nikki said it was beautiful, and it is totally. I hope you guys get a poster or something because I had to have a piece of it. I can't wait to hang that stuff up. And I hope to see you guys all. If you're in Central Time like me, you're in. It's at 1:30, and in your Eastern Time, it's 2:30. And if you're Pacific, 11:30, and Mountain, I'm mixing them all up today, 12:30. So I will see y'all all next week. And Biljana, thank you so much again for being our guest.
Thanks, Anne.
Bye.
Bye.